will become primary. Third, we must defend and extend the revolution. And fourthly, we must eliminate racism wherever it props up. Again, mass participation in decision making. Mobilizing the masses for communism is in many ways a sharp break from the policies of the old movement. Somehow we are just learning how to do this kind of communist political work. The old movement did occasionally, but it was persuaded that times were not right for communism, and the masses were not ready for communism. The great revolutions teach us how to win, from the Paris Commune of 1817 to the Russian Revolution of 1917 to the Chinese Revolution of 1949. And I just want to end, because I think my time is coming up, I want to end with this question that post-capitalism, and what vision do we see? What's the concept of political authority that we are going to exercise? And I want to define that the concept of political authority needs to come from the masses in an organized mass communist party. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I see this?
Next, I'm going to add another 7 minutes to the clock.
Okay, hello everyone, I'm Jessica. I'm going to be speaking a little bit about anarchist philosophy. Before Occupy, I did not consider myself an anti-capitalist. I didn't really know what to name all the oppression that I was seeing, because all I had heard was the alternatives that were thrown at me, and there was so much stigma by the state about communism and socialism and anarchism that I didn't really know how to approach all of that. So the first thing that I want to talk about with anarchism is that most of our perceptions of anarchism are shaped by the state. And when we talk about anarchism, it really means not a focus, like the focus shouldn't be on being anti-government. It's about more principles of like non-coercive methods of organizing, right? So that leads us to be against the government and the idea of centralized political authority, because there is no, the state carries a legitimate monopoly on violence and force, so their methods are always going to be coercive. And that doesn't mean that, it means that when we defend ourselves, we operate under like a non-aggression principle, where we do defend and we do believe in like organizing ourselves, but we do it in a decentralized manner to keep power as horizontal as possible. So the vision for like the society that we're building would really rely on more localized governance of the people, increased participation, increased communication, and through that there would be increased cooperation to like build a critical revolutionary consciousness to keep us in a constant state of checking the oppressive forces that at this point we've internalized within ourselves, because we're such products of the capitalist world that we use the same tools and the same language of our oppressors with each other. So through anarchist philosophy, I mean, in the vision that we're building, I think people would reconnect with their labor, not in terms of wage, but the productive value that they create would be used towards their community. So a lot of people talk about like, well, under this, and then they throw a what-if scenario. To me, anarchism is about a methodology. It's about human relations. It's about how we dialogue with one another. So whatever the challenge would be as a community, they would be empowered, kind of like we do with Occupy, to caucus and address the situations, and then we would learn from there. So really, we have the same vision in terms of sharing resources, but we would be constantly deconstructing and sharing power. It would really rely on community empowerment and like breaking up the idea that our communities are homogenous, and really allowing people to connect with each other based on affinity, and then we would work towards affinity, towards delegitimizing the state, right? And the vision that we would use is like a dual strategy. So we would build the alternatives right now. It isn't the idea that like we're going to start organizing and then we'll put in an agenda or we'll put in something that will lead us to more liberation. It's that we start now living by the methods that we want to reflect in the revolution. So it's very prefigurative and like now figurative politics, because we are exploring them. And like through like communization of space and communization of like power and labor, like we find that like that actually provides a more effective organizing tool and more empowerment. So like we have to stop the top-down organizing now and start the bottom-up empowerment of dialogue. And it really comes down to like taking stock and making room for people's voices, because society has internalized in us so much oppression that people are spoken over, and it really goes unchecked. it really goes, it just happens, and like people become silent, and through that, we're not going to have mass participation. And we talk about like democracy as it is in this country, and like the methods that we're given, and anarchism really doesn't acknowledge the political process that is given to us by the government. It really shows this idea of like we will build and organize ourselves, and it really, at this critical point in time with all the global revolutions and everything, it's really about global solidarity regardless of the nation state. So you wouldn't participate in the political process granted to you by your nation state. You wouldn't be demanding rights and being it's really this idea of autonomy, right? So you're not being granted rights by the powers that be. You are autonomous, so those rights can't be granted to you. They are yours and must be asserted and defended. And when we band together and we find that we actually have collective power to defend ourselves and to do that now, and we don't have to wait to be granted that it's like de facto authority that they try to like trickle down and give you, and then they give you access to it, and then you hold on to what you have because that's all you have. And when we talk about like direct action versus something like voting, it really comes down to the argument is like, well, that's what you have right now, right? So you don't want to give up your power. But that's the narrative that is being sold to us, is that, okay, now this is a critical time, it's an election period, now is when you have to start worrying about holding on to your power. But that's the game, because what power do you actually have right now? You actually don't have any power right now, but they're telling you that you're going to lose something in the process, and that's part of the regime, basically, is this idea that you're participating a little bit and you're manipulating the system to get some sort of gains and to manipulate gains out of it. And privilege and like all of these things tell us that we can manipulate gains out of the system. But at this point, it's been trying to be done for so long, and we've replaced serfdom and feudalism with capitalism. Like, what's next? If we continue going on this idea of not being horizontal and not creating space for everyone's voice and keeping it decentralized and restoring it to like localized governance, then we will create another system, could be better than capitalism, but still will not be egalitarian, still will not be liberation. Because to think that you can get like some sort of, it's the idea of leadership, right? We're not discouraging initiative or leadership, because that will always happen and that should be encouraged, but more people should be empowered to do that. It's the idea of leadership without any authority, and the idea of structure without any hierarchy. So you still have order, and anarchism is not opposed to order. It's more in favor of a methodology of dialogue and inclusivity, and that's all I have.
But I'm gonna give a 2-minute and a 1-minute mark, so you can